All right, everyone, welcome back to How I Sell. I am here with a guest that I've been super excited about since the second we got him on the show. We're stoked to bring you his mind, his thoughts on sales, and much more. It's Mr. Carlos Delatorre. And Carlos, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Danny. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so you have spent 25 years in sales building high performance teams. Right now, you're the CRO at TripActions. You've spent time at Vera, MongoDB, a slew of other spots, and obviously, you grew up in Miami and live in SF with your wife and son and your dog. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, my daughter.
And your
Son,
daughter.
daughter, and dog. Otherwise, you
Awesome.
got it right. And thank you for reminding me that I've been doing this a long time.
Yeah, of course, of course. It was one of the things that attracted us to you was you've got just a wealth of information piled up and so many stops along the way, and all of them, frankly, very, very successful. So we're pumped to jump in.
Nobody's ever called me old so kindly.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, for our audience, reminder for season 2 of How I Sell, we ask all our guests the same 5 questions to get an apples to apples comparison on what it's like to come up through sales and really crush the role. So Carlos, if you're ready, we will jump in.
Go.
Awesome. Question number 1. What's the best investment an early career salesperson can do for themselves and why?
Diligence. Diligence your jobs because it's like a curve, and meaning your career is like a curve. And so those early decisions have a big impact on how far you end up going. And so really, like, there's no amount of diligence that is too much when you're making those early decisions on what company to take, or even what career you want to pursue. But assuming that you want to pursue a career in sales, I would say do the diligence and put yourself in a situation where you have the best boss you could possibly have, someone who really knows his shit or her shit and is going to invest in you, and then put yourself into a company that's growing quickly. Because if you have a great boss that invests in you, if the company's doing this, then you're going to get promoted as quickly as possible. You're not going to be waiting for somebody to retire or waiting for a position to open up. It's going to be throttled. Your career trajectory is going to be throttled by you and your ability and your readiness. Beyond the best boss and the company that's growing quickly, I'd say other things to think about are going to be how strong is the company's enablement? And is there going to be an infrastructure around me to give me the skills, to give me the knowledge that I need beyond my boss? What do I think of the values of the people, not just my boss, but everybody I meet? Meet people who would be your peers, meet your boss's peers, your boss's boss, and ask yourself, do I believe in their values? Do I believe that I'm aligned and we see the world in similar ways? Because at the end of the day, values drive decisions. And so you want to be in a meritocratic culture. If you believe in yourself and you want to optimize your career, you want to be in a meritocratic culture where people get promoted because they deserve it, because they're ready for the next role, and not because of who they know or family relations or anything else. So best boss, best company, great enablement, and the right values. Those would be some of the investments that I'd invest in diligence to get some of those things.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. It's something that is very important and often learned throughout your career as you're going along. You learn it as you're going, right? You need to do that upfront work to evaluate, is this the opportunity that's going to put me in the best spot today? I have an offshoot for you. So if you're coming out and you're about to enter in your first role, whether it's sales or not, what are some of the markers? Let's just use one of the things you mentioned. So how do you evaluate if you're going to be in a situation with a great boss, with imperfect information? Maybe you haven't had a boss in the past. Maybe folks have, you've got some friends with great bosses. You've heard their perspective, but how do you know if it's the right boss for you?
Yeah. It's a great question, Danny. I haven't thought about it in this perspective. I've thought about it a lot from the perspective of teaching people how to be great bosses, but evaluating whether someone is a great boss. I think there's a lot of analogs. First, I need to decide for myself, do I think this person really knows what they're doing? Are they deep? Are they are they competent in their role? Because they can't teach me something they don't know themselves. And so it's like, if you're in chemistry class, you don't have to be a PhD in chemistry to know whether the professor sounds articulate and appears to have real genuine mastery of the subject matter. Einstein always said, if you can't explain something in simple terms, you don't really understand it yet. And so look for someone who is deep and able to convey to me that they really understand sales. Then number two is, and this is a judgment call, an assessment. You can assist your assessment by seeking third-party validation, but then it's like, okay, is this person competent? And are they predisposed to want to help me? Or is this person competent, but they're going to be sort of locked in their office, and I'm going to be like, like the guy at the deli at Whole Foods holding his ticket, waiting for the number to be called? Or is this person going to be right there in the boat with me and generous with her or his knowledge? That would be something else that I'd look for. And then, I'll go back to values again. I'd want to understand what this person's trajectory is in life and what they value, and then corroborate that from other people. Do other people think she's competent? Do other people find her generous with what she knows? And do other people respect her values? Those would be some of the things that I really that I value highly in terms of assessing a boss or a potential boss.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. Now, what I heard a few times over in both of those answers was the value system. And I think what's often forgotten, especially entering early in your career, and something that we teach at Ramped quite often, is like, it's okay in your interview to ask that type of question of your future boss or of a future leader or future colleague of yours. Is, what are the things you value? What motivates you? Why are you here? And turn the interview not in just a one-way street into something that both can answer and you can discover. And it's okay if you don't like the answer. It's okay to say no, even if you're given an opportunity. But know that and do the work to understand the value system going into the role.
Hey, Danny, I love what you just said, that it's okay to ask about values. I would even piggyback on that and say you should ask about values, and it will send a really positive signal to the person who's interviewing you. It'll send a signal that you care about the character of the people around you, and it'll also send a signal that you're confident, and that if your values are not aligned with the values of this organization or this boss, that's okay, because you're going to go find an organization and a boss with whom your values are aligned. So I would say ask it every time, and don't ask it as a gimmick. Ask it to really find out and answer for yourself. Hey, is this the kind of place and the kind of people and the sort of decisions that I want to be a part of?
Yeah, so true. It does take a certain level of confidence too, which you should have as a salesperson, to just ask that question. So I love it. Question number 2. What's the biggest surprise you experienced early in your career, and why?
It's like the same surprise kept happening. I kept thinking that I was at the top of my game, and then I realized there was a whole nother game that I didn't appreciate, and I got humbled. So my first sales job was like by accident, and my first real sales job, I sometimes jokingly say that I got fired from my first one at the ice cream parlor because I was loose with the toppings. But putting that one to the side, I worked at the mall selling men's suits in Miami, and I just did it because my cousin's boyfriend was the manager of the store, and he got me a weekend gig, and I didn't even know what this meant. But the first time we had a 10% commission, and so the first time I got a taste of selling $1,000 suit and making $100, I'd have to mow 5 lawns to make $100 back then. And so I could talk to somebody for, 30 minutes and make $100. So I really got a taste for, the kind of money that you could make. And so anyway, I was surprised, I did that for 2 summers, and I thought I was pretty good at it. And I thought, I kind of knew everything there was to know about sales, because I could sell, 3 or 4 suits in a weekend. And then in college, I worked at a copier reseller, Bernie's Office Automation, and I learned, and I was humbled by how hard it is to knock on the door of an office and ask for the office manager and try to talk to the office manager about, document management and, and electronic communications, which is code for, fax machine. Yeah. And basically have a situation where you're not supposed to come back to the office. They call it canvassing. You're not supposed to come back to the office if you don't get 20 business cards of office managers. And then you come back and then you spend the afternoon, cold calling or warm calling these people whose cards you got. Turned out that was hard. That was harder than selling suits. And then after college, I went to this medical company called Coulter back then. It's now called Beckman Coulter. And I did really well there, and I worked really hard, and I was a lot younger than most of my peers. So I had this great reputation in the company, like they thought I was like this prodigy. My dirty little secret was I just worked so much harder than everybody. So I had like twice the results, but I did 5 times the effort. I actually wasn't as good as the old timers, but I didn't brag about, how many demos I did. But anyway, I thought eventually I got good because I kept doing it. And so again, I thought I knew what I was doing, but really I was sort of self-taught. And it wasn't until I landed myself in parametric technology that was the first sort of real enterprise class, sophisticated sales organization. And that was hugely humbling because everywhere I looked were people that were as good or better, as smart or smarter, as hardworking or more than I was. And it was super humbling, but it was terrifying, frankly. I remember I had a long commute to the office, and I'd call my mom, and she was like the only person I'd admit it to, but I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make it. I don't know if I'm good enough to hang at this new place. But fortunately, I stuck with it, and good things happened afterwards.
Yeah, I admire the hard work and the effort, and we have heard that across many guests. Just in the beginning phases of your career, it really is. Even if you're not working smarter, it is sometimes just sheer will and outworking the person or people next to you. And something that I did, I like you, stumbled into sales almost by accident at Groupon. Was I had a leaderboard of the folks who were making the most calls, and I just straight up every day came in and was like, until I get good at this, or even if I don't, I'm just going to be number one. That's all I can do. I can just do the work, and if that's 100% of my control. Everything else may not be, but this is.
It's the easiest to describe path to excellence. Right. The path to being excellent is to suck, and to suck often. And the more often you do it poorly, the more you will learn, and the closer you will get to doing it well. And sure, there are shortcuts, and obviously this program that you run definitely can shorten that journey. But I will say, I'll get on a little bit of a soapbox here. To anyone that's considering a career in sales, check your why. And if the why is, I want to see how far I can go in my career, and this is an important and, I am willing to make the sacrifices personally in order to do it, then that's a good set of boundary conditions. If it's more like, hey, my neighbor's in sales and she makes a lot of money and drives a nice car, so this seems like a really easy way to have a great life. One thing about sales in general is it's measured and measurable, and so if you're not willing to really invest and take personal sacrifice, there are other things you could do that you'll probably be happier and more successful. So like work ethic is something you have to really get right with yourself about.
Totally. Totally. It's a great advice, and as straightforward as you can say it too. All right, moving on. Question number 3. What's one mistake that you made early in your career that shaped the way you operate today?
I optimized for the wrong thing. I actually did it twice, and I'll leave some of the details out to to protect the guilty. But I didn't follow my own advice. I didn't go necessarily to the best boss and the company that was growing fast, that had a meritocratic culture. In one case, I optimized for the title or the role, or fortunately I corrected the mistake quickly, but I lost time and it was very painful. That pain, when something goes wrong in life, there's a there's a saying, a guy I admire, Ray Dalio, says, pain plus reflection equals growth. And so when something doesn't go well, I think there's an opportunity that is to just sit in the pain of it not going well until we feel like we've analyzed it and we understand the drivers for that negative outcome, and especially the drivers that are in our control, and then take that lesson and implement it going forward. And that was it. I mean, I optimized for, hey, how much are they going to pay me, and what's going to be my title, and all this other stuff that isn't as important as best boss, best company, and a meritocratic culture. And so that hurt.
Yep, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. Ray Dalio is one of the favorites of the program too, and
Oh,
Principles
nice.
is a book that I would recommend to anybody to read. It's
Highly recommended.
He's the man. He's somebody I wish that I would have gotten to know his works well before when I did, which was about 4 or 5 years ago. Awesome. Question number 4. And some folks take this in a different way. Some are uncomfortable sharing a specific name. So if you want to talk about the situation, totally cool here as well. But who has had the greatest impact on your career, and can you expand?
Yeah. I mean, the two people that have had the biggest impact on who I am are my grandfather. His name was Jose. And the person who's taught me the most professionally is a guy by the name of John McMahon. He's well known in sales. If you Google him, you'll find all kinds of information about him. I was lucky enough to work in his organization, but many levels below, at Parametric Technology, and then at BladeLogic and at BMC. BladeLogic was acquired by BMC. I was able to report directly to him. And so I'll talk about him first, and then I'll say a couple words about my grandfather. But so from John, I think John is very thoughtful, and he has a great ability to simplify the core truths of sales and sales leadership, and he's very generous with what he knows. And so he was a great mentor of mine. I think in terms of sales leadership, in the years that I worked for him, I learned more about the real priorities of sales learnership, recruiting, development, and execution. I learned more from him than from anybody. And then from my grandfather, I think I learned a lot about being true to your values, a lot about respect for the environment, respect for other people, and the importance of doing the right things on the small things when nobody's watching, and how that kind of defines who you are. So I'm very thankful to have had both of those people in my life.
Yeah, they sound like exceptional role models for you, both in tactical and spiritual, emotional level. So I'm excited to hear that, and thanks for taking it in that direction as well. Last question, we'll get you out of here on this. We ask all of our guests on both seasons this one question at the end. If you could go back in time, now that you have the benefit of hindsight, what advice would you give yourself when you were entering into your career?
It's a little bit repetitive with what I said before, but I would do more diligence, and I would not fall for the bait of title or comp. or anything else. I didn't fall for the bait, but there was this one company that I almost went to because they kept throwing sort of fringe benefits. Hey, we let you fly business class, and we let you stay at fancy hotels whenever you travel. And it was, every company I'd ever been at before, you had to stay at sort of the Hampton Inn and fly, in the cheapest possible seat. So that was very alluring. But fortunately, I learned my lesson from there. So I think I'd do more diligence, and I think I would have landed in companies like Parametric Technology and BladeLogic and MongoDB and TripActions sooner, and would have made a bigger impact potentially on my career and on that of others.
That's awesome. And sound advice, and something that when you're coming into your career is not always present, right? You want to just go get that role, get the job, get the salary, like rush. You're right out of school. What's next? And oftentimes you forget, you got to just slow it. It's worth that investment of time in the beginning phases so that you land in the spot that's going to set the rest of your career up really well.
Couldn't agree more. The impacts compound on each other. For
sure. Well, Carlos, I know your presence online, but where can folks find you if they want to?
Follow me on LinkedIn, Carlos Delatorre. Gosh, I should know my Twitter handle. Maybe we'll put it in the show notes if there is such a thing. And I'm not particularly active on social media other than doing podcasts like this.
Awesome. Well, we'll send folks that way. We'll drop the Twitter handle into the show notes. And Carlos, thank you so much for being on the show. Our audience is going to absolutely love the guidance that you presented to them, and we hope to have you back someday on the How I Sell podcast.
It's a real pleasure, Danny. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.